Yeah, welcome to SMX Insider. We are the Jasons, Weigandt, and Thomas previewing the third round of Pro Motocross, the 20th of the SMX World Championship. And keep that SMX World Championship part in mind because we're going to break down some points that you did not even think about way deep into the show. But for now, we're putting the focus on racing at a mile high, at elevation, and the plot thickens, JT, because I know the scoreboard says another win for Jett Lawrence, but that was something, I think, in the first moto at Hangtown. Was that something? Eli Tomac, Aaron Plessinger, 1-2?
I think so. Especially if you're an Eli Tomac fan, you just wanted to see the Eli of old, the guy that could go out and win races. He could be in the championship fight. And anytime you get up to, I think he's 32 years old now, you just wonder, does he still have it? Does he still have that elite speed, the guy that can go beat anybody, anywhere? I think we saw that in the first moto. It took him a while to get there, but those last couple laps, that was prime Eli Tomac. So I think we're onto something here. But I will say, Weege, you look up and he's already double-digit points down. That's the problem. He's been fantastic so far through 2 rounds, and he's still losing ground to the overall championship points leader. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that championship point leader being Lawrence, who is not prone to having bad races. I know he had one huge crash last year at Hangtown, but that's one jump that he shouldn't have done. If he learned his lesson from that, he doesn't tend to hand a lot of points over. But on the other end, JT, this is Tomac's home state race. So I know Hangtown's always been good for him, but could the advantage continue in his direction here?
You'd love to think so. And I think there's a lot of reason for everybody to be excited. The Thunder Valley fans haven't seen him in 3 years, but historically it hasn't been that great of a racetrack for him. We've seen some really strange rides from Eli Tomac at this very racetrack. So time will tell. We're going to find out on Saturday, but I think the idea of him racing in Colorado versus what we've seen in Colorado don't always necessarily pencil out.
All right, well, a lot to talk about then going to that race this weekend, and we'll do it all on this show. Things that you are thinking about, such as Hayden Deegan and some bad luck for championship contenders in the 250 class, who's hot and who's not, both here and on the other side of the pond with some news from the MXGP paddock. We'll talk to a potential AMA Hall of Famer. Maybe we'll convince you to vote for him on this show. But the main thing we want to remind you of is exactly the time frame of when to watch the races this weekend back to a live NBC window, and that is key because it gets a lot more eyeballs on the sport. Now, if you watch on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass, not a huge change here except for the fact that the 450s will race first. So race day live takes place 10 o'clock local. That's noon Eastern. That's an hour of qualifying coverage. First motos at 3 o'clock. That is 450 Moto 1. Then a 2-hour NBC window begins at 4 Eastern. You can continue watching on Peacock if you prefer to do that. That'll be 450 Moto 2, 250 Moto 1. You'll get those. And then the final moto of the day back to Peacock and the SMX Video Pass. We'll remind you again at the end of the show, there will be a quiz. But tell your friends, watch on NBC or watch the way you always do. Either way, we expect some great racing, which we'll preview right here. 30-second board. These are hot topics in the sport. We will certainly be talking a lot about Eli Tomac. We already did. We will again. But a tip of the cowboy hat, is that the type of hat he always wore? John Tomac is the Grand Marshal for this weekend's race because it is Colorado. It's the home state for the Tomacs. John Tomac might be as legendary, if not more so, than his son, JT. So he was a great American road cyclist. He switched to mountain biking when that sport was really starting to take off. One of the biggest stars in those early days, so a legend. And then obviously he's done a great job guiding his son's career. So tip of that cowboy hat to John. That'll be fun this weekend as Grand Marshal.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And I had an opportunity to go visit with all of the Tomac family this past fall, setting up for the Monster Energy Supercross preview show. And, the focus was talking about Eli and his return to Monster Energy Supercross. But I was awestruck of John because I followed his career. I know what a legend he was on bicycles. So for him to be recognized in this format at this race, we're with Steve Lamson at Hangtown. We're going to even one up that with John Tomac at Thunder Valley. This is an awesome thing that we're seeing happen, is bringing these legends, whether it's in motorcycle racing or not, to be Grand Marshals is a really cool aspect of the weekend.
Well done. John Tomac, who has a motocross championship at Loretta Lynn's, by the way. So he's not too shabby on a motorcycle also, and he certainly knows a thing or two about performance in elevation. JT, you've raced this race before, over a mile high. Bike, body, what is the bigger effect, you think, with this?
I think the motorcycle will be affected the most because it's quantifiable. You know, for the athletes, yes, they're going to notice it. They're going to be a little bit more out of breath than they normally would. And I noticed it when I was walking the track, whether that's Friday or Saturday morning, whatever your routine is. I noticed it climbing the hills like, oh yeah, we're at, over 5,000 feet here. So in the qualifying practices, they'll notice it because they go so far into anaerobic. They're way over the threshold of their breathing, and they're going to notice that when they try to recover and then go again on the next lap, it's going to take them longer. And then just overall general fatigue throughout the weekend, it does take a toll. So they'll notice it, but the bike is easy. As soon as you ride out onto the first lap of the track, you're going to notice that you're way down on power. So that's where the teams have to really do their part. And over the years, we've seen who really has the extra power to lean in with and not. And I'll just say it, watch the start. If there's a pattern going through that first corner, if there's a wave of blue, or you see two Honda CRF 450s come around that first corner, that is a clear-cut signal that they have the best package for high elevation. They've been able to basically replace all of that lost power and get those guys back to the front. So it's a test for everybody. It's a test for the riders. It's a test for the teams to try to get back to equal footing as they would at sea level.
Oh, two Honda 450s rumbling through the first turn up front. That seems to happen sea level all the way through. What we'll see at elevation in Colorado might not matter that much, but it will matter in other ways. So let's bring in who is probably the most knowledgeable person we know now, our own Dr. Joe McGinley, who has quite a story of performance in the mountains to tell. SMX medical update. Wow, the timing is aces on this one. So mile high elevation race this weekend in Thunder Valley. And wow, the work you put in to research this segment, Dr. Joe McGinley. So last time we saw you, you were headed to try to climb Mount Everest. That's some real elevation. Tell us how that went.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to the top, but we did get pretty high. We got to an altitude of about 24,000 feet. So we're climbing on the north side of Everest. Up through the North Col, and climbed an ice wall in the middle of the night. That was a unique experience. We got up there, but the weather window was narrowing quickly on us as we were climbing, so the wind started picking up, and we just couldn't make it up the rest of the mountain to get that summit this year. Unfortunate, but that's how it goes on the mountain. But yeah, we're in the wheelhouse here. This is what I've been doing for the last probably decade. So yeah, got a lot of insight on this one.
So thinking about the experience that you had, and then what these racers are going to go through this week. So what would you be doing to prepare? It's a much shorter runway that they have versus what you had. This is a months-long process to get ready. But what are a few of the tips of the tricks of the trade that they could do to maybe offset some of that negative effect?
Well, they're going to be at an altitude of about 5,000 feet coming into Colorado, Denver area. The number one thing for both the fans and the riders is hydration. As you go up in elevation and altitude, your blood volume changes, and you need to remain hydrated. That's going to be the number one preventative effect, is making sure that you maintain your hydration throughout the entire weekend, even preparing before you get there. There's a lot that you could talk about as far as training and prep getting there, but as far as being on site and at this point in the show, this is where they're going to need to be, is focusing on fluids.
So I want to see you walk up to that first turn at Thunder Valley like it's nothing this weekend. I think you've climatized yourself quite well for this weekend.
Yeah, hopefully if this altitude's bugging me, I got a problem, but I should be good to go at this track this weekend. Looking forward to it, and it's always a fun race. Listen, the all type of variables, the altitude, it affects the bikes, it affects their bodies, but we'll see some great racing for sure.
All right, thanks to Dr. Joe. Good to see him back at the races. As for the rest of the track, regardless of elevation, JT, what do you think when you see the track map for Thunder Valley?
Well, Thunder Valley is one of the more liked tracks, but it changes so much on National Weekend. They bring in so much outside dirt to add some pliability. Not so much different than what we saw last week in Hangtown, because if you showed up on a random Wednesday at Thunder Valley, it's incredibly hard-packed and much more what you would think of Colorado. further, this track, talk about the elevation, what it's going to do to the power, but it also makes the riders feel a little on edge. And I use that word on edge because this track is kind of always angled. If you're coming down hills, if you're climbing hills, descending, cutting across diagonally, you're always on the edge of the tire, and you just are never really going in a straight line in a flat plane. So riders have to use a lot of body English and try to find edge grip. So they're going to be using that scoop tire. I think that's where most of the riders are going to end up, but they have to be a little mindful of the way this track develops. And you just, it's always got that off camber feel to it where you're just never planted, never going in a straight line. So it has a very unique look and feel to it.
So it's still early in the season, things relatively unpredictable, and then there's so many ways that this elevation could affect the results. Let's see how it could turn out and go to the experts.
All righty, James Stewart, let's talk NXT bets. Man, we had some great racing last weekend, but let's dive right in. I want to talk about Eli Tomac's missed opportunity after winning that first moto at Hangtown. Now we look at the odds, James, moving forward, and Jett Lawrence still the favorite, no surprise. But Eli Tomac drops a little bit back. He was a plus 247 in the odds last week for the championship, the future odds. Now he's a plus 381. James, what do you think about last weekend?
Well, I mean, if he's not still sleeping on the gate as he was in that second moto at Hangtown, the odds would probably be a little bit better for him. But overall, Vegas knows it was a missed opportunity, and unfortunately, you don't get too many opportunities with Jett Lawrence, just like that second moto. Eli rode great, and you would think after the way he won that first moto, I mean, pretty much beating Jett Lawrence and everybody else straight up in the heat, the odds would be better. But it's Jett Lawrence. Again, he's only going to get better. Eli get better. But when you look at those two, just a missed opportunity. And, you know, hey, you can't blame Vegas for what they say and what the odds say to Eli.
Indeed, James. Okay, let's move to this weekend, Thunder Valley. Let's talk podium odds. No surprise, the top guys that they've got up here, Jett Lawrence, Eli Tomac, Hunter Lawrence, Aaron Plessinger, Justin Cooper. And no surprise to see Jett Lawrence at a minus 2,500. Pretty simple that he's going to be on the podium, given 17 of 18 times he's won. But the one that sticks out for me, and James, I think they're going to have to watch the inside line. The odds makers have Justin Cooper at a 104. They have him below Hunter Lawrence and Aaron Plessinger. And I don't think the odds makers got the message that Thunder Valley is Justin Cooper's best venue. He went 3-3 for third overall last year. That was the best finish of his rookie season. And then previously in the 250 class, he had the most overall wins, the most moto wins, and the most moto podiums. So, James, what do you think? Justin Cooper at Thunder Valley, I think, is a great choice.
Yeah, I really do. And the reason why Justin's so good at that is because how smooth he is on the throttle. And Thunder Valley, it tames these boys, especially when it gets the ruts and stuff. Like, you know, I feel like a Jeremy Martin type of rider, even somewhat Hayden Deegan, really aggressive, or old Hayden Deegan, that Thunder Valley racetrack kind of tames him. So when you look at Justin Cooper and how he's been riding and progressing all year long, look, I think that's a sneaky bet on that one to be able to put him back on the podium. He got second moto last weekend, and maybe it's just because he's so quiet. Out of all the guys, Eli, Aaron Plessinger, Jett Lawrence, Justin Cooper looked like the one who the heat affected him the least out of all those guys. So I expect Justin Cooper to get another good start. You know, the Yamahas are fast, and I suspect him to be on the podium this weekend.
Yeah, James, I'm right there with you. And man, that elevation there in Colorado is always interesting. So let's see if Justin Cooper's fitness takes over for him. Guys, make sure you check your local sports book. The lines will change as the week goes, and you guys are making your bets. See you in Colorado, James.
Okay, thanks, boys. We're going to go back to a topic we introduced last week. That is AMA Hall of Fame nominations are open. This is for all racers in all motorcycle disciplines within the AMA. So it's not a shoe-in that someone from the world of SMX gets in all the time. And it also includes folks from off the racetrack working within the motorcycle industry. So this is why we want the push toward Chad Reed, who obviously accomplished great things in the SMX world. And you knew him well when he's racing JT. Still know him well now. So tip of the visor, let's get Chad Reed in.
Yeah, I think this is a no-brainer. You look at the collection of work that he has, like the body of work, And then also, he was one of the best racers we've ever seen. And I always say that he is the rare combination of both, where he has accumulated numbers that are truly mind-blowing, podiums and all these things that, think about how long he raced in the premier class. But then he also was a two-time Monster Energy Supercross champion and an AMA Pro Motocross champion. Like, that is such a rare find. So to me, it's like, yeah, what are we even talking about whether he should be in or out?
We're going to talk to Selvaraj Narayana here in a moment, who is also a nominee. We'll give his accolades then. There's a couple other names that pop out on the list for me. Bill Balance, who's one of the greats in Grand National Cross Country on ATVs. He was there when I broke into this industry. He is up to be nominated. He's a 9-time champion there. And then I found your old boss, Geraldo Faraci, when you raced for Husqvarna way back. He's on the list too, JT.
Yeah, it's going back a long time ago, but Geraldo was a legend in road racing in Europe. You go to Italy still, and if he happened to go to, say, Imola or any MotoGP race, people would be swarming him because he has that type of presence. And he's been a mainstay in motorcycle racing for the better part of 60 years now. So yes, motocross, he came to kind of late in his career with the Fast by Faraci Husqvarna team. But in road racing, this guy is an absolute legend.
Yeah, so definitely roll through the nominations list if you're an AMA lifetime member with some voting power. But let's talk to our friend Sel. And as promised, we are now joined by Selvaraj Narayana for the big interview. Now, Sel, Jason and I have known you at the races for a long, long time, and I know you go back even longer than we do. The official title at KTM North America is Executive Director, which to me would sound like way above racing, but I see you at the races all the time. So what actually are you doing? Are you just there as a fan, or what is your actual role there at KTM?
Basically, that my executive title come from being in India and also Southeast Asia for the last 12 years, going back and forth. And they just wanted to carry over the title. So I'm also doing a lot of special projects for John Hines, that including from racing involvement, and all over. Anything that can throw me under the bus, then I take over and do that. Going to the races, assisting with the racing team, the Red Bull team, it's been also adding to the passion. There are a lot of other things that I do communicate with the John Hines, and also dealer network and marketing. Overall, it is patched. I patched all over with my experience.
So when you look back over what's been a lifetime in this industry now, you've touched so many different aspects of it, from racing to the business side. What are the things that you're most proud of? This AMA Hall of Fame nomination, of course, is going to cover a lot of it. But you personally, when you look back, what are the things you're most proud of?
Inspiring. When I saw Roger DeCoster in 1969 racing, we were our team that working and racing against him. I never thought in my whole life that I would be working that close and going with him every day in my life, holding each other's hand. Basically working together. I never have dreamed of, and that's what inspiring. Even today, every day working with Roger and see what he does and what we achieved. And this is probably one of the inspiring my lifetime, and that I'm very proud of it. Something that is I dream every day in my life. Being with Roger. I'm totally inspired, and I'm honored to be working with him.
So you get nominated now for the AMA Hall of Fame. I saw you at Salt Lake City, I think, when this had just been announced. I don't even know if that was something on your radar. What was your reaction when you heard you were up for AMA Hall of Fame nomination?
It's a blessing. Then I'm so proud to be being with one of the best friends and legends of the motorsport, and I'm so very honored and humbled enough to hopefully I can receive that award.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see what turns out. We'll get people to vote. I know you've been at these races forever and you love it just as much now as you did back in those tent days back then. So congratulations on just still being around to see how far it's grown and take it all in. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for having me.
All right, back to previewing this weekend. So WMX, the Women's Championship race, the first 2 rounds, they are also on tap for round 3 here in Colorado before a big break. They'll be back for the last 3 rounds. So Lachlan Lala Turner, JT, has won 3 of the 4 motos. She's been super dominant, especially what we saw at Hangtown. But there is other talent through the pack. So you got to watch this on Fridays, because I don't think it's as cinched up as maybe it has looked with the results.
No, I see it as a 3-way battle. You know, we had Michaela Nielsen won the opening round, which was a little bit of a surprise. But then Lala struck back at round 2. And then we have the return of Charlie Cannon, who is systematically improving coming off an injury. So, you know, we're going into the 3rd round. We're going to have a pretty long break until the final 3 rounds. But I kind of see this as anything goes. And I would be very wary of the improvement of Charlie Cannon as far as championships go.
Now let's move to that 450 class. And this has become so intriguing. It's only 1 moto loss for Jett Lawrence. You could say that first moto at Hangtown was the first healthy moto loss. He lost a couple last year after his big injury and crash at Hangtown. He was still winning the overall somehow. I know 1 moto, especially early in the season, seems kind of wild to think that deeply into it, but I think the record proves we have to. Is this Jett and the Honda and coming back from injury and Hangtown and heat, he wasn't where he needs to be? Or is this just, hey, if Eli Tomac were racing in 2023 and 2024, we'd have seen a ton of this? I don't know what direction we go from here.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in between, because both things can be true. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. I do think Tomac would have been a factor. If you think about how well he was riding before the Achilles injury, to think he wouldn't have been a factor in that 2023 Pro Motocross season, I think that's silly to assume that. But also, we have to think about Jett's Hangtown results haven't been as good as other tracks. I think he would be the first one to tell you that he just doesn't feel as competent here. And now he has 3 wins, so it's not like he doesn't do that well. I just think that riders favor certain tracks. They can lean into their skill sets. And other tracks, they know, hey, I've just got to manage through this. If I can get a win, great. But it's just not going to be a day where I go out and dominate and no one can touch me. I think one of the most important factors there is that even though the results say that Jett has a little bit of difficulty, he was able to overcome that. That first moto was the worst moto we've seen a healthy Jett have maybe ever. And guess what happened at the end of the day? He was still standing in the middle of the podium holding the biggest trophy, the highest.
I want to talk a scenario we haven't seen before. Take a quick glance at the SMX points here. This is the combination of Monster Energy Supercross standings and Pro Motocross. Cooper Webb is at the top. He continues to stretch that gap because Chase Sexton is not racing, wasn't at Hangtown, won't be at Thunder Valley as far as we know. So that makes it seem like a slam dunk that Webb, I mean, Tomac and Jett Lawrence and Hunter Lawrence, they didn't barely race Supercross at all, so they're not going to catch him. But JT, you figured something else out. There are some X factors here in Cooper Webb trying to cruise his way into the #1 seed for the playoffs.
Yeah, and part of this is we're so new in this SMX World Championship points system that we're learning the nuances of it. And the whole talk was, well, Sexton's going to get to the front. Well, we know that's out the window now. And I don't think, like you mentioned, that Jett or Tomac can make up enough points. So you'd have to make up 350 points over the course of the season to get there. But this Justin Cooper, Aaron Plessinger thing is real. And you just start gaming out the math, and they could very easily get to the front and go in as the top seed. And I don't know that there would be a more unlikely headline that we could possibly come up with than either AP or Justin Cooper are the top seed going in when we go into Concord. So that's what this championship is. That's the chaos that is created through this point system. And I don't think there's ever been a better way to represent consistency and what an entire season means than if one of those two were the top seed. And it reminds me of, you know, we used to have this like Grand National Championship concept, and Andrew Short had won it a couple of times because of the combination of Supercross and Motocross. This is very representative of that.
And it just leads to such a fun period in this sport. You see the topic here, age is just a number. On one end, you have Eli Tomac winning a moto, looking great, as good as ever at age 32. And how about his kind of parallel rival on the other continent, Jeffrey Herlings, coming back to win an MXGP over the weekend in Germany, JT. That's the 108th. That's the most ever Grand Prix victory for Herlings, who has been through the ringer on injuries, but showing he still has it.
Yeah, I think these guys, as And we talked a little bit earlier about, the motorcycles have gotten a lot better, which has changed a lot, and it's sped up the WMX. But I think this age factor is another aspect. The motorcycles are much more competent. I think they help the riders extend their careers because they don't take as much abuse. They just handle better and work better. When you contrast that to guys retiring at 27 years old or younger, which was the norm for a very long time in this sport, it does seem like a golden era as far as extension of careers.
I'm going to throw in one more thing. There is an open weekend on the MXGP calendar the same weekend of the Southwick National. So come on over, Jeffrey Herlings. I don't know if Chase Sexton's bike is going to be used at that point. Come on over. He's not in title contention. He missed the beginning of the year with a torn ACL. He's back to speed. I don't know about 100%, but he's back to speed. Make it happen, Jeffrey Herlings. We'll get the Tomac Herlings Jett showdown we always wanted to see. And the reason we talk about all this is because there's not as much to talk about in the 250 class as there normally is. That's usually the class that's super dynamic. There is nothing dynamic except for just Hayden Deegan's antics on and off the track, because otherwise he's just dominating.
Yeah, Hayden's clearly the class of this field. I mean, 4 wins, and really, I would say unchallenged wins have been the story of the 250 class, but it's overshadowing an incredible start to the season from Jo Shimoda. Like, for him to be second all the way through 4 motos and to battle through the field to get there, this wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. He has had to earn it every step of the way, and he's honestly been the only one that has kept Hayden in sight. Now, maybe you say in sight is that, 8 to 10 second lead. Is that fair? I think it is, because he has been able to keep that gap consistent where everybody else falls off the back. So it feels like Hayden is 1 and Joe is 2, and then everybody else is like 8 right now when you really think about the way these results pan out. It doesn't mean they all can't go the same speed for 15 minutes. The second half of the race is telling a completely different story.
Yeah, there was a real test of who was fit and strong and healthy at the end of Hangtown, and that leads us to one fun thing. This might never happen again. So Deegan, I think, had some sort of allergic reaction or something like that. You could hear it in his podium interview. His throat was starting to close up. He eventually was okay, visited the Alpine Stars medics. I think he got some medicine and he was all right. But he couldn't go to the podium to shake the champagne. And Levi Kitchen, I think, was just feeling the heat, so he was out. Shimoda was not feeling great, but was good enough to walk up there. And then what happened, JT? He decided, well, if the other mechanics are going to shake the champagne, I might as well let my guy do it. Is that basically how this went down?
Well, yeah, Hayden wasn't feeling all that well. And they were kind of walking around saying, hey, Hayden is not up for this champagne thing. Like, what do we do? And they asked me at one point, and I was like, I'm not the person to ask. I have less than 0% authority up here. But Brian's like, well, we're gonna let our mechanic do it. We're gonna let Duff do it, and he's the perfect guy in the perfect scenario to lean into this and spray champagne. So I thought it was a really cool thing. These mechanics work endless hours. The amount of work that they put in during the week and on the weekend, I don't think that most people understand the lengths that they go to make sure that the job gets done. So for them, this was a moment to celebrate, and I think they really felt the appreciation of this. So regardless of, whether Hayden wasn't feeling up to it or not, I was smiling because I thought this really was a chance for them to feel some appreciation that otherwise they don't always get.
Yeah, that's Ben Griffith with Shimoda, Brent Duffy, who you mentioned, with Deegan, and Matt Goodbread. That's the mechanic for Levi Kitchen. Good job with the champagne, boys. SMX Facts. We bring in Clinton Fowler, the staff statistician, a scintillating first moto at Hangtown, and that was exciting enough to see Eli Tomac get a moto win. And that kind of overshadowed how significant that moto win is. Every moto win for Tomac at this point is great, but this one was extra special.
Yeah, Weege. I mean, it's one thing that he's the 3rd oldest rider to win a moto in 450 motocross, pro motocross history. But that was his 69th moto win, and that breaks a tie with Ryan Dungey and Rick Johnson and moves him into 2nd all-time, which is just absolutely incredible. A storied career that started back in 2014, 11 years ago. JT, I look at this list and Eli Tomac's accomplishments amazing, and then I see Ricky Carmichael with 141 wins. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, Ricky is, I don't even know that, younger people can appreciate the dominance that he displayed all the time. I do. We're the same age. I grew up with him, and I try to share that. People are watching Eli Tomac, and they're like, this guy is unbelievable. Look how long he's been this good. And I'm like, guys, he's not even close to what Ricky was doing. And that's not even trying to take anything away from Eli. So just like everything else in life, there are levels to this thing. And Eli Tomac is elevating himself, but it's a long way to go to Mr. Carmichael.
Yeah, when you think about someone being double the next person on the list, I actually did some Googling on this. When Babe Ruth retired, he basically had double the amount of home runs as the next highest guy on the list, which was his own teammate, Lou Gehrig. That was about 100 years ago. So within that realm, I don't know if anyone else has doubled the second best on a list. So this is both the Tomac and Carmichael compliment. We'll see if Eli gets more soon. As for the rest of the field, no joke, it wasn't just Tomac riding well at Hangtown. Aaron Plessinger, he's on the gas also, Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, it was Aaron Plessinger that Eli had to chase down in that first moto for the victory. Aaron Plessinger started out the Supercross season pretty rough, 9:22 and 22 to start. Looked like it wasn't going to be great. He turned that season around, and he has kept the momentum going. He's having the best start to a pro motocross season in his career. He's gone 4th overall and a 2nd overall, 3 moto podiums, the most in his career. So, JT, Aaron Plessinger is off to a great start, even if he didn't get that win in the first moto. The big question is he going to get that first moto win? Can he do that against the titans of Jett Lawrence and Eli Tomac?
Well, he looks great, just like you said. And that question is a tough one to answer because in a neutral basis, I would say no. I don't think he's going to. But then you watch that first moto at Hangtown, and it wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like he got anything handed to him. He was just flat out faster than everybody, especially in the first half of the race. So if he can continue both the starts and maintain that speed, it's certainly possible.
We all know one other stat here. Hayden Deegan's at a very high level, but this one kind of surprised me. He's got 4 in a row to start the season, which doesn't seem that wild. I mean, I feel like there's been dominant runs in the 125 or what's now the 250F class, Clinton, but this start to a season is more significant than I would have thought.
Yeah, it is one of those stats that kind of surprises you. We've had dominant seasons, as you've said. So the fact that he started with 4, and that's the 5th longest streak in the history. He's tied with Grant Langston, who started the season in 2001 with the same number of moto wins. It is surprising, but I guess that's what happens in that small bike class. There's just a little bit more competition and variability in the results. Pretty incredible. I've got to imagine we're going to see more, JT.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a systematic rise to the top. And at the opening round at Fox Raceway, Clinton, you helped us with this stat. You can literally watch Hayden Deegan's results improve. The first 2 rounds of his career, not that impressive. Fox Raceway is barely inside the top 10. The second year, he was a little worse than 5th as an average finish. Last year, he's your 250 Pro Motocross champion. He jumps that average up to 2.1, I believe. And this year, it's 1.0. So you can just watch the trajectory as we go. And it'll be really difficult for him to stay 1.0 all the way through 11 rounds. But it's not going to shock me at all if his average finish is better than 2. And that is the excellence that we're seeing. That is the improvement we're seeing. I'm running out of reasons to think he won't be in the fight next summer right away because he's checking all of the boxes that it takes to get there.
I want to just go back to this streak thing. So the last time we saw someone go 5-0 to start the year, and Deegan's 4-0 right now, was Jeremy Martin back in his heyday about 10 years ago in this class. If Deegan goes 1-1 again this weekend and starts 6-0, where does that put him start the season streak-wise?
If he goes 6-0 to start, that'll move him into 3rd all-time to start a season, which would be pretty darn impressive. He'd pass Jeremy Martin, who's got the 5, and Bob Hanna, who also had 5 to start a season. The thing that's really interesting to me is he won the last moto at Ironman last year. So technically, Hayden Deegan has 5 motos in a row, and that ties him for 11th all-time 11th all time with 9 other riders. And the most important piece, one of those riders is Jett Lawrence, who, JT, you just talked about. He's going to be facing off next year, and we're going to see if he can bring the heat there in the big bike class.
Yes, no offense. Right now, we can only settle for statistical comparisons between Jett and Hayden, which is fine, but we can't wait to actually get the real thing. And maybe 365 days from now, we'll be on this show talking about those two about to race each other at Thunder Valley. For now, though, Deegan's just racking up the numbers. Thanks for the stats. We're going to wrap up this episode of SMX Insider. Let's again remind you of exactly the broadcast format for the weekend. Everything will work on the normal time, that is 10 o'clock Mountain Time, race day live. That will be noon Eastern if you want to watch there. The gate drops at 1 o'clock local. That's 3 Eastern. But what will be different is that 450s will race first. They'll have their first moto, and then the 250s will have their first moto. And the reason why is to fit into an additional 2-hour window live on NBC. That will be the, let me see if I can get this right, the first 250 moto and the second 450 moto. Well, they're live on the middle of the day on NBC. You can, of course, watch everything live on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States if you prefer to do that. But if you have some friends that casually drop in on the sport, tell them this is the weekend to do that starting at 4 Eastern when the second moto of the day begins. And that'll be on NBC. And there's a lot to watch right now, because if you're taking an audience that's either super hardcore, JT, or people who are casually dropping in, it's not hard to explain Jett Lawrence versus Eli Tomac and this budding superstar Hayden Deegan in the 250s. It's a pretty easy plot line to follow.
Yeah, especially you have this return of the hometown son in Eli Tomac in Colorado. His dad's the Grand Marshal. He's trying to win the championship for maybe the final time. You have Jett Lawrence coming in. You have Hayden Deegan. And let's not forget, Hayden Deegan is going to probably be in this 450 Pro Motocross Championship against those two next summer, which is looking more and more juicy. So yeah, we don't have to look far to find a reason to tune in.
Absolutely. So do that with us. That'll be Thunder Valley this weekend. Peacock, SuperMotocross.tv if you want to subscribe to the international pass outside the United States. And of course, live on NBC as well. That's this episode of SMX Insider. We are fired up for round 3 of Pro Motocross on Saturday.